Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. The next hour is all about the entrepreneur, why they start businesses, how they make their businesses grow, how they overcome failures and achieve success. Your host, Bob Gibbons, founder of Riata Commercial Realty, a commercial real estate advisory and tenant advocacy firm. Bob will ask probing questions to find impactful solutions that will help take your business to the next level. And now, here's Bob Gibbons.
So you're new in town, have decided to walk away from a giant company and open your own business. But you need contacts, you need advice, you need sales. Scary, right? So where do you go? And where do you spend your time and money? Well, today's guests may have some of those answers. In fact, they better have some of those answers. We have two guests today, Jamee Jolly, President and CEO of the Plano Chamber of Commerce, and Bill Sproull, President and CEO of not only the Richardson Chamber of Commerce, but Tech Titans and the Richardson Economic Development Partnership. Not only are they in the catbird seat for helping entrepreneurs, but their own paths and experience will help provide some added wisdom. Before the Chamber, Jamee was the Executive Director of the Greater Dallas Restaurant Association and Director of Public Affairs and Programs at the Real Estate Council. So that's probably a complete show right there. But we also have Bill, who prior to being at the Richardson Chamber was the chairman of the International Economic Development Council in Washington, D.C. That sounds interesting. And the Texas Emergency Technology Fund. And he's also been with the Greater Dallas Chamber of Commerce and the McKinney Economic Development Corporation. So we've got some amazing knowledge going on in the room at the moment. So you both have so much experience working with member organizations, volunteer boards, city councils. Y'all are either fascinating or nuts. Let's find out which it is.
We ask that same question daily.
Welcome to the show, guys. Glad to have you.
For us.
Yes, glad to be here.
So let's start off with just give us the little 30-second pitch on your respective chambers of commerce. You know, how old are they? How many members? Whatever. So, Jamee?
Great. So the Plano Chamber of Commerce was founded in 1946. We're celebrating 73 years in business next year.
Nice.
And we have roughly 1,250 businesses that represent about 170,000 employees in Plano and throughout North Texas. And I would say we're really focused in four key areas. That would be advocacy. We want to be an advocate for our members. Education, making sure that our members are top of their game and that they stay educated on everything from the issues that are important to their business to how to do business. Innovation, we want to be seen as a chamber of innovation, so we offer some unique programming that we feel helps guide our members to innovation. And then collaboration. A lot of people think of the chamber as a place to come and network and meet people, and we love that part of our chamber, but we also look at collaboration as working with other partners through the school district, the city, partners like Richardson Chamber. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Bill?
Well, I didn't realize until now that our chamber was founded in the same year as the Plano Chamber.
Really? I didn't
1946.
either.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
So
That's
That's
cool.
great.
since you weren't on air, it's good.
Yeah.
So we have 1,150 members spread throughout North Texas, actually, because of our Tech Titans affiliate. And, collectively they employ 250,000 Texans. We have, focus on economic development. We are the first chamber of the Metroplex to have a contract with the city to do economic development. That's my professional background. We've had that since 1984. We do a lot of legislative advocacy work in both Austin and Washington, D.C., and, of course, locally. Like the Plano Chamber, we have lots of programs to keep our members educated and informed and trained and help them kind of grow their businesses. We run a leadership development program and have for 34 years called Leadership Richardson. We have over 1,000 graduates out in the community, doing good work in the community. And we actually kind of shifted our focus on education to workforce development because the number one concern that I hear from all our members is we need more talent. Mm-hmm. And there's a skills gap out there. There's high competition for skilled people. And so we're actually working K through 16 now, trying to develop programs to get kids on a career path that our employers would want.
Interesting. So let's go back to the EDC piece of it for now. So why did the city of Richardson decide to contract that to the chamber instead of sort of having that as a separate entity or department like it is in Plano?
Well, for several reasons. So, outsourcing obviously is a cost-effective way of gaining services, and that's true in economic development. We can be a lot more efficient. Secondly, is when you're talking with business prospects considering your community, it's often better to have somebody from the private sector, a chamber of commerce, doing that than a city employee. No disrespect to the city employees I work with; they're all great, but there's just a comfort level, and that really feeds into confidentiality. Because we can maintain confidences because we're not a governmental entity. They can discuss their plans with us. We're not going to share that, obviously, with their competitors. Whereas if they give documents to a city, it's oftentimes discoverable. And so those are the three reasons why they typically do it. And we're not the only chamber in North Texas that has that kind of relationship. There's several others.
The Dallas Chamber does that, doesn't it?
No, the Dallas Chamber actually does not take any government money. When I was there, we made a strategic decision not to do that, just that we could be arm's length and, frankly, be a fair broker and a neutral player to all the cities in the North Texas region. But the Irving Los Colinas Chamber does economic development on behalf of their communities and quite a few others.
So, Jamie, do you wish you had EDC under your umbrella?
Well, although we don't manage economic development, we are a partner in that process. Obviously, Sally Bain on our city staff works hard to bring great opportunities, jobs, paychecks to the area. I see it as a partnership. She helps to get them here along with our city council and our leadership. My job is once they've made that decision to call Plano home, how do we get them plugged in the community? How do we make sure they have access to the talent that they need? Things like that. So we work in partnership. It's great when a city makes an announcement and the next step is they join the chamber and they get involved. That's really where I see we can make a difference, and that helps on the retention side of making sure those businesses are successful when they're in Plano.
But now you were pretty involved, I understand, when all the laundry list of names of companies that relocated to Plano, Toyota, or you pick the name. You were pretty involved in those and active in dealing with those, right?
And really, it was after the decision was made, I would say. So Toyota's a great example. Got on a plane, I think 2 weeks after the announcement. We flew out to Torrance and then also to Kentucky. We met with their employees to talk about why you'd want to move to Plano. It was a delegation of Dallas Regional Chamber, Plano ISD, and then the city of Plano. And that was after the decision had already been made. And then J.P. Morgan Chase is another great example. When they moved a lot of their jobs to Plano, it was meeting with their senior executives to talk about how do we incentivize people to move to our community since their job is now here, but also just how can we plug everyone into the Collin County area and the company, making sure that they are good corporate citizens, that they're aware of the needs and issues that exist in our communities.
Bill, does having both the chamber and the EDC under the same umbrella give you any kind of an advantage over those that don't?
Well, I don't know that it gives me an advantage over those that don't. It just makes it more seamless for us and our community. So, by able to have both the front end process, the mid level process, and the back end process all in one place, it certainly makes it a lot more seamless for the customer.
Yeah, I would think the customer would not be handed off, so to speak. So that would be an advantage. We
like to talk about service after the sale.
And I will brag on Richardson real quick. My wife used to be in insurance, and the city of Richardson was her client. She insured the city, which I thought was pretty interesting. I didn't even know people did that at that point, but she thought that the city of Richardson was a very, very well-run organization. I don't know that she dealt with the chamber or EDC, but the city itself, she really bragged heavily on that. So that was kind of cool because she didn't brag on too many of her clients, for-profit or nonprofit.
I would say we're very lucky in North Texas. We have some really great city leaders, city management. It's nice. It helps make our job a lot easier.
I would bet.
Particularly when you have a council management form of government, because the city manager then is really the CEO of the city.
Yeah.
His council is really the board of directors. And to me, that's kind of best government practice.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people don't understand that. They look at the mayor and they think that the mayor is the de facto leader of the city, and it's more of a figurehead in a lot of cases. The real leader is the city manager.
Exactly. So the mayor of Dallas, for instance, is not the chief executive of the city. However, in Houston, the mayor is the chief executive of the city. They have a strong mayor form of government, and you typically find that a lot more in the northeastern and northern cities, and particularly really big ones. I mean, Chicago, for instance, where things can get pretty unwieldy. And so the mayor not only has the city, but he also has the school district.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Really?
Can't imagine.
Yeah.
Dang,
Yeah.
that's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a big job.
Richard Daley Jr. was the guy who decided that, when the Chicago schools are really going downhill, he was going to exercise his authority under state law and basically become the chief executive of the school district.
The one thing about Chicago that I always found interesting is that the name of the mayor is plastered all over that city.
Oh, yeah.
Richard M. Daley Mayor, Richard M. Daley Jr. Mayor, I'm sure Rahm Emanuel now.
Right.
I mean, that name is everywhere when you walk through that city. And I've never seen that in any other city in the world except for Chicago. It's kind of unusual. But anyway, so this show is really all about entrepreneurship. We interview primarily founders of companies, innovators, creators, et cetera. So what is it, and we've only got 2 minutes before we got to go to break, but what is it about a chamber that is the single most important reason that somebody creating a new company, why they should join your chamber?
Well, I think each chamber offers unique benefits and programs and things like that. But I think any business that's truly looking to grow their business, it's not necessarily about connecting with the consumer, but also learning from each other. I love to hear stories when our members are working together. They're using their sphere of influence to build their business, but they're also learning best practices. They're sharing growing pains. A lot of the entrepreneurs, they're not just the CEO, but they're also the marketing, and they're also the take out the trash janitor, and you name it. They do the real estate. They have to do all of it. So I think it's great when you can put those types of minds in a room, and they're working together, and they're thinking through their challenges and sharing best practices. And I think it just makes them better at what they're doing, and they're better at their business. So.
Both of our chambers run weekly networking programs for entrepreneurs and small businesses, and I would say that they can find access to immediate sales leads. I mean, that's gold for an entrepreneur, and they typically do it through partnerships that they develop with other businesses. So they kind of help each other. They form their own network, and before you know it, they're feeding each other sales leads.
And that has got to be a challenge when you're dealing with companies that have one person and other companies that have thousands of employees. And I mean, that's got to be a tough way. So you have to have a ton of different programs to reach everybody at all those levels, I would assume, right?
Well, and I think I come from an association background, trade association. So everybody's focused on the restaurant industry, or everyone's focused on the real estate industry. You're right. I mean, you've got different industries, different size of businesses, different needs, issues. What might be important to one member is not important to your other 1,199 members. So,
and we'll have to pick that up after the break, so we'll be right back. Okay, so before the break, we started talking about how does the chamber handle such a huge diversity of membership, from the one-man show to thousands of employees. And Jamie, you were kind of starting to talk about that a little.
Right, and just depending on their industry, size of business, they have lots of different needs. We constantly have to revamp our programming. We have to look at new opportunities. I need to help find solutions for businesses for the problems they're going to have in 2 years, not the problems they have right now. That's too late. So we're constantly evaluating our members, asking questions, asking what keeps you awake at night? What's your biggest challenge? How can we help you? And then creating the programming and the support services, or even really the advocacy. A lot of it's just helping. A lot of it has to do with what's happening in Austin or city council, and making sure that we understand their needs and issues and working on their behalf. It is challenging, though. It takes a lot of different people working together. Our board is very diverse in the companies they represent, so that helps us to keep a good perspective of what matters to small business, what matters to our bigger corporations, things like that.
So in our business, and this is work that's been done by the American Chamber of Commerce executives, there's 4 different archetypes of members out there. They're called business buyers, business investors, community buyers, and community investors. So your business buyers are typically your entrepreneurs and small businesses. They're wanting to buy sales leads and business. I mean, that's what
Very
they're
transactional.
for. Very transactional, absolutely. Your business investor is more really wanting promotional visibility and advertising. They're the ones, they can't get out of their businesses to come to your events and network. They're restaurant owners, they're small mom and pop retailers, other folks like that. What they want is they want visibility into the community where then customers will come to them. You've got community buyers. They are ones who, will look at a community and say, I can help here and I can get benefit from my business. They tend to be mid to large size companies and people who want to influence. And then your community investors typically are your really large company or stakeholders. They're in it for the good of the community, but they also they want to help shape a good community, and increasingly their concern is about good government and talent. Those are the things that they're most interested in.
Interesting. So I'm a member of the Plano Chamber of Commerce. Just full disclosure.
You can join my chamber too.
Well, I'm a member of Plano. I'm a member of Frisco. I've never participated in anything at Frisco, but one of the people in my company does. I've been very active in Plano in varying degrees over time. So there is the networking you referred to on Friday mornings in Plano. I think it's Thursday and
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday in Richardson. And it seems to be like that's primarily a lot of pretty small companies for the most part, or individual contractors, salespeople of a larger company that, refer business to each other. They get up and give a little pitch on what they do. And actually, I went very faithfully for several years, and I got quite a bit of business from it.
Good. Glad to hear that.
I unfortunately quit going, but it was primarily because the primary target of who I needed as a client changed. When I was just starting off, I was going to take anybody. But as I got more mature in the business, that kind of referral I was getting was not as good. It wasn't really what I could survive on for long. So I ended up using that time for something else and going after a bigger client.
But you'd done something very important. You had built your network. And for a sole practitioner, a small business, you've got to rely on partners to help you get to the gold.
Well, and the other thing that was good is that it helped me build out a stable, if you will, of service providers that my clients would need.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of people in that chamber that are great people, and it's fun. I mean, that was actually the hardest part. It was really fun to go there every week, and I met a lot of people, had a lot of friends there, and to not go felt like I was kind of rejecting it, which that was not it at all, but it kind of felt that way. But a lot of those people I still refer clients to.
Well, when you say too, though, as your needs have changed and evolved, there's new and different programming that fits your needs.
Yes.
If we're a good chamber, hopefully we're able to help you evolve through your business cycle and say, okay, now I'm going and this is my target audience, and where should I spend my time instead of doing this program, but maybe there's another program. And so hopefully we've been able to do that for you.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going with the question of how do you handle companies with such a huge range? Because I know that the people that show up at the morning meetings are not the same people necessarily that show up at the lunch and learns, and are not the same people that show up to more the advocacy, the government, public policy type meetings. And so there is something there for everybody if they're willing to look for it.
So we've had to really diversify our programming, much like what Jamie said. You've got to constantly try to address the market's needs. So we had a member of the Service Corps, retired executives, come in and do weekly appointments with people who wanted to start a business, really teaching them how to write a business plan and helping them to kind of rationalize what they were thinking about doing. So these people are green. I mean, they need just a good mentor, if you will. And we've got all the networking programs and education, but we adopted 2 additional programs out of the Lowe Foundation. So you probably don't know who Edward Lowe is, but you probably bought his products. He used to say, I got you to buy dirt in a baggie, create a kitty litter. And he made oodles of money. And his foundation, he's since passed, is all about entrepreneurial education. And so we licensed a program called Economic Gardening. It's for second stage entrepreneurs. So a lot of companies will get to a plateau where they've hit a revenue milestone or employment milestone, and they're just having difficulty continuing to grow. This program is all designed on helping them accelerate their growth path, particularly on the revenue side. And so it's really a consultative service. There's a virtual network of experts from across the country that give guidance to the entrepreneur, and it's like coming up with a whole new business plan that really helps accelerate your growth.
Now, is that part of their membership, or is that sort of an extra fee?
So we actually do this through our economic development program as a service for our second stage entrepreneurs that we think have real potential to grow. Not all of them want to grow once they've hit that plateau. They're called what we call lifestyle entrepreneurs. They're really happy just with the size, the way their business is. They don't want the hassles of growing again, and they're basically getting a coupon. But you've got some entrepreneurs that are really, frustrated. How do I get my company to the next level? This is the kind of program that we've developed.
So how big would those companies need to be to qualify for that program?
So typically they're somewhere between $1 million to $50 million in revenue. maybe I would say 10 to 100 employees.
So that really is going to be a program that's going to compete with things like Vistage and Strategic Coach, a lot of these coaching or peer-to-peer membership board of directors kind of groups.
So actually, that particular program doesn't, although the other low program we've licensed does, and that's called Peerspectives, which is kind of that peer-to-peer roundtable. It's not as expensive, though, as some of those other programs you just mentioned, which are, by the way, entirely good. I know those folks that do those. They do wonderful things, and you really have to get the chemistry right within your group because it is kind of a cone of silence, group, and you really help each other, almost like you've got your own board of directors. Those programs are very good. Yeah,
I'm a member of Vistage and have been for years, and it's really good. And I have other friends that are in EO and a lot of other organizations, Alternative Board, et cetera.
Right.
And we've had some of those organizations here, C12, et cetera. So there's an amazing range of options available. So it's interesting to see that you have that through the chamber. I like hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how do chambers differ from each other? I know we've talked a little bit about the difference between, the fact that you have the economic development in-house and in Plano you don't, but are there significant differences of chambers beyond that?
Well, I would say, we each try to find what do our members need from us? What does that membership look like? What types of businesses? How do we program based on those needs? So every one of them is going to look a little bit different. Tech Titans is a great program that Richardson Chamber started to evolve there, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that's their niche. I would say we've done some unique programming more for some of our larger corporations. We have a culture and inclusion effort that we put together, an initiative that really works with our D&I professionals, diversity inclusion professionals in some of our companies. And that really is to address the retention, the talent retention and acquisition concern, if you will. And then also just some other unique programming. Again, you have to look at the individual membership of the organization. I would say we spend probably about 50% of our time really working with businesses that have less than 5 employees. And that's through like the weekly networking and the lunch and learns and things like that, where we really feel like that's supporting that small business owner, entrepreneur, starting up something, building something. And then we spend probably about 30% of our time and resources looking at the larger corporations and what their needs are and advocacy and things like that. So I think it just depends on who your clientele is and what you need to do to fulfill those needs for that member.
Well, I think the truth is we benchmark and steal from each other gratuitously.
All the time.
Like any good entrepreneur would.
Well, that's called best practices, right? We have a close-knit community of chamber executives here in North Texas, particularly those that are, at a certain scale, like, a Plano, a Richardson and Irving, a Frisco, McKinney, et cetera. And we collaborate together a lot. We benchmark on each other. And so a lot of our members have the same concerns as Plano's members or Frisco's members or Irving's members. And so, you take a look at just the multiplication of women in leadership programs that all the chambers have, or young professional programs. Jamie mentioned diversity and inclusion. We have a very international community in Richardson, so that we do a lot of work with actually ethnic chambers and trying to bring them into, the mainstream, if you will, and have them collaborate with us. So, and you're also dealing with 2 chambers that, I'm proud to say are accredited in the top 1% of chambers nationally. We both have the highest level accreditation from the U.S. Chamber and their accreditation program. And so that's very much about best practices and staying on top of your game and strategic planning and constantly evolving, because your market's evolving constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fact that I've invited these 2 chambers to be here is not exactly random.
Thank you.
And actually, McKinney Chamber of Commerce was a client of mine. I relocated their office, and the last time they did that into a building downtown, so they've been a client. And,
great.
So yeah, I like dealing with a lot of nonprofits and other service organizations, trade associations, however you want to characterize it. But I like a lot of them, and I think they're really, really important. It's interesting how they compete with each other at times, and especially when you get into the ethnic chambers of commerce, now you have another whole layer of things like that. But we'll get to that in a second. We're going to take another quick break. Hi, this is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty. If your office lease is going to be expiring in the next year or two, the one thing I would tell you definitely do not want to do is exercise a renewal option. Now, that may sound a little nuts. When you negotiate for that renewal option, why wouldn't you actually want to use it? Well, the reason is because while you want to have one as a reservation for your space so the landlord can't lease the space out from under you, that option may not actually work the way you want it to now. It may have made sense 5 years ago, but it doesn't today. The only thing that changes when you exercise a renewal option are the expiration date and the rent. But you may want to do other things like have another option to renew, have an option to terminate or expand. You may want to be able to expand now or have a new base year for your operating expenses. There's all kinds of things that need to be considered. So we recommend that you renegotiate, not renew. For more information, contact me, Bob Gibbons, at texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. All right, we are back. We're talking to Bill Sproull of the Richardson Chamber of Commerce and Jamee Jolly of the Plano Chamber of Commerce. And by the way, I've been remiss not mentioning how to find them. You can find Jamie at theplanochamber.org and Bill at richardsonchamber.com. That's interesting. Why is it a com and not an org?
I think we wanted to, kind of appeal to the business audience, and .com kind of says that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. One thing we started talking about before the last break was how there's such a huge diversity of chambers. And so I know there's, of course, a chamber for every city that exists. There's all kinds of ethnic chambers, Hispanic and I mean, you name it, Asian. And in fact, I even recently was asked to speak at the Nepalese Chamber of Commerce. And I was like, I thought somebody was playing a prank on me whenever this person called. And I was like, wait a minute, you talking about like people from Nepal? Chamber of Commerce in Dallas?
Yeah.
Really?
Lots of groups.
Sure enough. I was just like, wow. And they were having their annual banquet and we're looking for a speaker, and I couldn't do it, but it was still, it was not something I really knew even existed. I knew about, the ethnic chambers, but not that particular one. So my question is, how many chambers should a company be a member of?
It really depends on location and who your target is. I know a lot of people look to join our chamber. We have our fastest growing population of membership comes from a zip code that's just north of Plano in Frisco, but they want to connect with Plano businesses. About the majority of our sales tax in Plano is B2B transactions. So obviously we have a lot of business to business, but we see a lot of companies that join because they want access to those members that are members of ours. So I think it would be in location. You want to make sure you can attend and get plugged in and benefit from some of the resources that are offered. I think there's about 95 unique chambers in North Texas. And we were just looking at that with a group of chambers. I think there's a total of about 95 right now.
Jamie's right, too. Often our trade area extends beyond the geographic boundaries of our city. And both Plano and Richardson have very large business bases that a lot of other companies, want to buy into, if you will. So, over the course of the time I've been at the chamber, anywhere between 30 to 50% of the chamber's membership are not physically located in the city of Richardson. But they want to be part of that trade group and trade area.
Yeah, I was amazed whenever I used to go to the Friday morning meetings at the Plano Chamber, how far some people drove. There was a guy that drove from Decatur every Friday morning to go to and it started at 7:30.
I think we had at one point a member from South Africa that literally
their company
was based there, and it it was very interesting. But they wanted to be in front of this business community and learn more about the business community because they were thinking about opening an office in Plano. So.
Okay, so they were scouting, doing their recon,
exactly,
which is brilliant. I mean, if somebody's going to consider doing business somewhere, I mean, where do you call?
Right.
You call Chamber of Commerce, and actually, that's one of the things. My perception is that from an international perspective, everybody knows about chambers of commerce all around the world, but they don't know about EDCs everywhere around the world. So they would be more likely to call a chamber than they would an EDC. Is that fair? Is that accurate?
In general, that's true. In some countries, you're required legally to join a chamber of commerce.
Really?
In France, I believe that's true. It's a registration process.
Sounds like the French.
Oui, je compris. The Tokyo Chamber of Commerce has over 78,000 businesses. And again, it's a registration process for them. But in the U.S., you're not required to join a chamber. And, we deal with a lot of international businesses. We have a foreign direct investment program, and they relate more to the chamber because that's kind of what they know from where they came.
Yeah.
And that helps us. So my staff person who runs the mayor's office of international business is part of the Chamber of Commerce. And likewise, Jamie, I don't know if Plano does this, but chambers often have to sign documentation called certificates of origin for companies who export abroad. So we have bilateral treaties with a lot of countries where it says if your content comes from the United States into our country, you pay less in tariffs or duties or taxes. And so the companies that are doing that actually come to our offices to get a stamp that says we certify that this company is doing business here and making this product that they say that they're making. Then they're eligible for the reduced tariff.
Interesting.
Yeah, we get a lot of those for a lot of the manufacturing, and Frito-Lay sends a ton of them out of our office every day. So we have to.
I never knew that.
I know. It's a very interesting part of
So
our
do you
business.
actually have to go to their place of business to verify this?
Well, we know them well enough. I mean, we know what
Okay.
they're doing. And for us, it's Fossil,
Yeah.
because they do business globally. It's Lennox International. It's several other companies. But, yeah, I mean, you need to check this stuff out because there is liability if you get it wrong.
Right.
Ah,
Yep.
interesting.
We usually do our due diligence to verify that it's a Plano company that does some type of manufacturing on campus, on site.
So if somebody calls into the chamber and says, I need X, I need a air conditioning company.
You'd be surprised
I need
what they call for. We get all kinds of
Very
calls at the
true.
chamber. So
All right, so I'm glad you said that. What's the most interesting call you can disclose?
So I remember about 5 years ago, I've been with the organization 8 now. About 5 years ago, the person that answers our phone said that someone called and said their uncle once had wooden teeth made from a dentist in Plano, and he wanted to know where that dentist is.
Oh, my.
And I'm like, well, I don't even think that's legal anymore.
You tell-
And how long ago was that?
George
But-
Washington died a long time ago.
We get
That's bizarre.
You get people that say, "Will you Google this for me?" or "Can you tell me this?" And it's a very interesting. To me, it's fascinating why people would pick up the phone and call their chamber to find out the things they ask. But I'm sure
For
y'all
us, it
have
was
stories.
a woman who was trying to find her ex-husband because he was not sending her alimony.
Oh no!
So, we were
Wow.
we did not follow up on this request. I did not think it was appropriate for us to try to track this guy.
Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy. I mean, why would that wouldn't have never have occurred
Well,
to me?
we're kind of the modern yellow pages. I
Yeah.
mean, for a lot of people that have interest in the community, we're their first stop. A lot of chambers, by the way, house the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and so purposely the community is trying to send visitors their way. We have lots of material that tells newcomers about the community, and so we get just all those kind of crazy questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody does call into the chamber and says, I need a whatever, how do you decide who gets that referral, or do you even make the referral?
So we use a system, our database. We can actually pull a list of, if someone calls us and says, I need a realtor, I can send them an email or I can print out a list of every realtor that's a member. And that's what we provide them with.
Every single one?
Mm-hmm.
You must have hundreds of realtors.
No.
Come on.
We probably have about 30, I would guess.
That's all?
Mm-hmm. And what we encourage them to do is obviously do their due diligence and homework on each of those. Now,
Are those alphabetical, or is Marvin's name at the top?
yes, my husband's a realtor, but he's not on the top of the list. I will say there's ways to enhance your listing on our website so that you get a more predominant placement. But also within our website, each of our members have their own website built in. And so people can go out and actually find out information from our website on each of those, like what service areas they provide, service in which communities and things like that. But we try not to be biased. We do have some partners, organizations that we partner with for specific needs and receive an endorsement, if you will, through that affinity relationship. But it has to be something that's unique and of value to our members. But yeah, for the most part, we want to make sure that all of our members have the opportunity and the access to any business that comes through our channel. Mm-hmm. And technology makes it so easy now. It's amazing. We're about to roll out a new app. Each of our websites, you can do a directory search and put in a keyword, bank, and it'll pull up everything that has the word bank in it. So
I've actually used that.
yeah, and we get pretty good amount of traffic on our website of people looking for more information and then calling the chamber to get more detail. But yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're actually rolling out a new e-commerce platform to try to push more of those inquiries, not only from visitors, but also our residents in the community, out to this e-commerce platform where it's more automated. And as Jamie said, our members will all get a basic listing on there, but they can enhance it. They can put their own videos on there. They can put their own testimonials on there. They can do kind of product descriptions. And so it gives the consumer just a lot more information at their fingertips, where they don't have to be calling my receptionist to constantly ask, well, what about this company or this company or this company?
So that's interesting you say that, because, I mean, there's so many places that people can go online to find recommendations or just a list of whatever. I mean, just Google whatever. So for the chamber to take that on is interesting. Is that primarily because you're trying to sort of buy local? Is that more of a buy local thing?
It really is. I think that, people are really wanting to shop and support hyper local, I'll call it. I mean, they can go to the Amazons of the world or others and buy stuff. But, a lot of people want to support local small businesses, local retailers, local restaurants. And, we're always getting new restaurants in town. So here's an easy way to, go through, a list of different kind of cuisines. I want this kind of cuisine. Oh, here's all the restaurants that are like that in town. I can find out more information about them that way. And so I think, there's this. We have a National Small Business Week, I think, in November. Is that right?
typically, yeah.
So we are, I think it's coming up the first or second week in November. So that's when we're going to roll out this new e-commerce platform. We used to call it Shop, Dine Local. We're probably going to tweak that name a little bit, but it says what it is.
Yeah. Interesting. So what's the one of the things that I know you guys really spend a lot of time on is economic development, and whether it's through the EDC or through a chamber, but how do you compete for your own city, but at the same time not knock the region? I know, in Dallas, I know we have this issue because if you're in Houston, you're in Jacksonville, Florida, you're in Denver, there's not a lot of little suburbs. But in Dallas, Fort Worth, we got two giant cities. And then I think I heard on Monday at the North Texas Commission presentation that there are like 15 suburbs that are more than 100,000 people.
Yeah, I think we have more large suburbs than any other region in the country, even those with above 250,000. I'll give you a good example.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop, and we'll have to pick this up on the other side of the break. I always ask these great questions right at the time. Time for a break. All right, we better be right back. All right, we're back.
So I think a really good example of how we all kind of both collaborate and compete is what happened on the recent Amazon HQ2 process.
Right.
I was at the Greater Dallas Chamber when we competed for the Boeing headquarters process,
I remember that.
2001 or 2, whatever that was. And I would say that the region kind of collaborated together, but there were a lot of people kind of going one-off and doing their own things, and it didn't seem very coordinated or, unified. This time around, however, it was much better. I didn't hear communities sniping each other and saying, criticizing somebody else's proposal. I think we all kind of followed the rules and, went through our regional partner at the Dallas Regional Chamber to present, what we thought were our best opportunities. And I've heard nothing but compliments about the process. And I think that's kind of the ethos that we have these days. We're going to compete, when the opportunity comes to the region. But when it hasn't selected the region, we've got a unified front for everybody. And, I think we all believe that rising tide raises all ships.
Right.
Amazon comes anywhere in this region, we're all going to benefit one way or the other.
Without a doubt.
And you look at some of the major relocations recently. Sure, we won Toyota. It's physically located in Plano, but it's a huge win for North Texas. They've been extremely engaged in helping the community in Dallas and being good corporate citizens throughout this area in North Texas. So again, it may physically be located in one city, and we love that, but it's a win for the region. So.
Well, and I live in Plano, and I also serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So, again, full disclosure, whenever there's any kind of a new big development, especially apartments being considered in the city, the first thing that the city citizens complain about are it's going to crowd my streets and it's going to crowd my schools. Whether those are accurate or not, we'll leave for another conversation. But that's the big things.
Sure.
And I can tell you, as a resident of Plano, I do business all over the DFW area. But if HQ2 did come to Dallas, I don't want it in Plano. And not for all those reasons, but because I think the best place for it as a region is either downtown Dallas. I would love to see it there, or out near the airport. To me, that makes sense.
And there's been a lot of discussion. It's like something like that coming into a community completely changes the community and for the better. And so there has been a lot of discussion like that. And I think when you look at the different proposals, there's some pretty fascinating ideas out there of where you could put something like that.
We have so many options.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had proposed a 100-acre site that is owned by the University of Texas system immediately adjacent to University of Texas at Dallas.
Yeah.
So it's going to have a new Cotton Belt commuter rail station on the site.
Mm-hmm.
It's right next to the President George Bush Turnpike. You'd have immediate access to all that great talent coming out of the university. I mean, we're fortunate to have unique sites like that. We're fortunate to have a great, national research university like UT Dallas.
Oh, yeah. UTD is great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing with Amazon and HQ2, I mean, I don't know. I'm a little bit on the cynical side of thinking that maybe that decision was made long before they even started the search, but
I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
No, I think they're actually, you wouldn't have gone through a very public process like that if you had already made the decision. But, they'd already thought about, okay, what is my short set of communities? And maybe I'll be surprised by some things. And I think they have been surprised. But I think it's also telling that 14 out of the 20, cities that they identified are all in the Eastern time zone. So you can pick your odds.
Well, and I think, and you can speak to this too, Bill, but what's interesting now is economic development used to really generate from some real estate or someone from a company calling economic development or the city and asking questions and asking for a presentation. And now it's all so viral. I mean, it's everything from what awards are you posting on your city's Facebook page? What are you doing? What are citizens doing? What are some of the headlines you're making? All that research is out there and at their fingertips. So a lot of it's happening unbeknownst to the city that they're looking at and considering. So it's really changed the game quite a bit.
When we landed State Farm's big regional campus in Richardson a couple of years ago, they've got 8,000 employees there now. They were evaluating our marketplace 2 years before we ever talked to them. And so,
Interesting.
I mean, if you're going to have that concentration of employees, you're going to have to do some deep labor analysis. And it has to be over a period of time in order to really validate where they think it's going to go. So the whole site selection process in my career has really changed a lot to where, the community had to have every detailed bit of information. So much of that is available on the World Wide Web now. They really want to know hyper-local information and trends and changes because they've got their huge data sets they're already, buying into or having a consultant look at that'll basically come up with a short list for them already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you said that because that definitely seems to be the case anymore. Is that people don't need to be really getting information from the local groups as to what's going on in that city because that's so readily available, and it seems like they could narrow that. I'm surprised they even had 20 cities on their list, on their quote short list, because I would have thought that would have been maybe 2 or 3. Because with Boeing, I don't remember them coming up with 20.
It was Dallas, Denver, and Chicago.
Yeah, it was a very short list.
I think, from Amazon's perspective, though, and I'm speculating here, they may have wanted that list of 20 because they're going to do a lot of other things over time. So now they've got this incredible repository of economic development information. They can go, well, we may not put HQ2 here, but boy, we sure could put something else over in this community.
Well, you got to believe they have something in every one of those communities. I mean, they got a giant footprint in Dallas-Fort Worth already.
Absolutely, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, so what are the biggest issues facing North Texas businesses right now that the chambers are involved with? Bill, you first on this one.
Both the Plano Chamber, the Richardson Chamber, and a number of others are doing an unprecedented amount of collaboration, getting ready for the next session of the Texas legislature. We felt like we were really on our heels last session, having to fight. Have to fight the bathroom bill, which we didn't think which we thought would actually damage our economic development chances here in North Texas, would have sent the wrong message at the wrong time.
And I will just say, I think that was the dumbest bill I've ever seen, and I can't believe it's even got any life
Well,
still.
it wasn't necessary. And so, we don't want to have to face that again. With the help of the North Texas Commission, there's about 90 some odd chambers in the region that are coming under this umbrella, but there's about 9 of us that have really active public policy efforts: Plano, Richardson, Dallas, Fort Worth, Irving, others. And there was actually a pretty interesting editorial in the Dallas Morning News the other day about, businesses banding together to fight excesses in the legislature. We're also highly aligned around, basics like investments in education, both public and higher education, investments in transportation. And that's where we need to be focused. Mm-hmm. So both Jamie and I have very active public policy programs where you have get out the vote efforts. We're registering people to vote. A lot of people new to Texas don't really understand our system of government here. They don't understand how important the primary is. And so I've had actually 2 members of my staff deputized as voter registrars, and we do huge voter registration drives, for the state farms of the world, but also companies, like Fossil that have been here for a long time, and they love it. It's a great benefit for their employees. So I would say that that's kind of the big unifying challenge that we're all grappling with right now. That legislative session goes and starts the second Tuesday of January and goes for 140 days. So hang on to your seats. Hang on to your seats.
I would say definitely school finance. That's big for Plano. 52% of our property taxes are paid by our commercial properties. And this year we'll send about $209 million in recapture funds back to the state. And although we totally believe that every student in Texas should have an equal opportunity to a great education, we also think that system is broke. It's proven to be unsustainable over time.
And just to be clear, that means that the taxpayers of Plano are spending $209 million to subsidize children being educated outside the city limits of Plano, or outside the ISD of Plano.
Right. So to give you just a quick scale, typical homeowner in Plano, what you pay in full taxes to the city for all the city services, public safety, roads, everything that you get through your city services, that portion that you pay the city is almost equal to the amount that you're paying to the school district that then goes on to the state, doesn't stay in the district. And that's pretty alarming. We're about the second, third highest recapture payment each year. Other school districts, big school districts, have now entered that recapture process, and so it's gotten more attention over the last few years. But I do think the bigger challenge in that is, let's not just throw more money at education, but how do we measure the outcomes? We all have needs for talent and skilled workforce in our communities right now. How do we make sure the kids we're graduating tomorrow can go fill those jobs that are existing in our communities? So really digging deep into what types of kids are getting out of our schools, what level are they at when they're entering either college or the workforce? And then I also think the other big thing that came through on one of our recent member surveys is mobility. Obviously, we've been extremely blessed here in North Texas to have great roadways and funding for transportation, but the budget's become tighter and tighter at the state. And in Collin County, we continue to see rapid growth. We will probably outgrow Dallas County. I think the year they've projected somewhere around 2040, 2045. So knowing that, how do we make sure we have the infrastructure to sustain all these people trying to get to work? We all think about commuters and our commute times, but what about that person that's trying to move a service or product across our community? Mm-hmm. We need to make sure that that's efficient and effective, and they have options. So whether it's a high occupancy lane or a toll lane, whatever that might be, we want to see what those options are so that we can keep moving our people around North Texas and our products and services.
So my family and I live in the Plano ISD portion of Richardson, and I'm one of those taxpayers whose dollars is going to the state.
Thank you.
Your viewers or listeners need to know that over the last 10 years, the state has reduced its share of overall public education funding from 50% to about 37%. So the state budget writers, in effect, are balancing their books on the back of local property taxpayers. And, people are screaming mad about how high property taxes have gotten because appraisal values have kept going up. But had the state, done more of its job in funding public education, we could have lowered rates, and we're just in a
Long
really
ago.
tight situation now. And we're just in a
Long
really
ago.
tight situation now.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Jamee Jolly, President and CEO of the Plano Chamber of Commerce. You can find out more at planochamber.org. And Bill Sproull, President and CEO of the Richardson Chamber of Commerce and other related organizations. You can find them at richardsonchamberofcommerce.com. We'll be back next week with another great guest. And please tell your friends, leave us a review on your podcast of choice. Search us at The Next Level Show. Bye.
Thank you.